Welcome to Dare a New Belief, a place to discover what is possible for your life after the loss of a loved one, and where you will find inspiration, insight, support, and love, and hopefully a bit of laughter to help you through the day. Now here's your host, Nada Hogan.
Hello and welcome to Dare a New Belief. Today on the show, we have Jesse Harless with us, and Jesse is going to tell us a little bit about himself, but he's got this fabulous story that I know you are all going to enjoy and be enthralled with the same way I was when I first heard Jesse's story. And he has a website and I'm going to say a facilitation around this, Jesse, and then you straighten me out on my language here, called Entrepreneurs in Recovery. So if you can go ahead and just take the lead here, Jesse, and tell us a little bit about you and how Entrepreneurs in Recovery came about.
Yeah, thank you, Nada, for having me on your show. And so Entrepreneurs in Recovery is my business that I started in 2017. And the mission of Entrepreneurs in Recovery is to elevate the lives of people in recovery who might be lost, stuck, or lack direction to gain clarity in order to live a life on purpose. So that's the mission behind it. And how does that happen? Well, one of the ways, the original vision was to do coaching, right? So I would coach people one-on-one. And then also what I wanted to do is find a way to take people through a process of not just one-on-one, but how do you take a whole group through a transformational process of elevating their life and helping them connect to purpose and passion and strengths and goals. And then that became the future of where Entrepreneurs Recovery is now, is a facilitation process that I had helped to create, where I take people through this process in 1 hour, going through their strengths, their passion, and then creating an action plan on that. And I do this at treatment centers, addiction treatment centers. I do this with entrepreneurs who are in recovery, and I've done this in communities as well.
Okay, awesome. So Jesse, can you tell us how it is that you came about doing any of the work in recovery?
Yeah. So my story began really at 22 years old. It started before that, of course, but it started at 22 when I was facing federal felonies for my addiction to prescription opioids. I had an addiction to cocaine and heroin and alcohol, but eventually it got to a place where I found a way to order prescription pills. That cost me freedom nearly. I ended up getting federal felonies because of ordering prescription pills that I was taking. And that brought my addiction to a huge interruption. It was a big shocker to me and to my family. It saved my life. Thank God it happened because of that, 22 years old, I've been using drugs and alcohol in a way that was very progressive for about 3-4 years prior to that. So at 22, I was facing these charges, and I had to change everything. And that's kind of where the journey began. Is at 22, I found my version of recovery. What that looked like was I found a mentor. I found a therapist that was paid for by the court. And I also found self-help groups. And that was the beginning of the journey. From there, I started adding new habits like reading inspirational books and turning them into positive affirmations, because I had serious panic attacks and anxiety for a long time, especially in the first few months of my recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. And I kind of started there.
Wow. So I have so many questions just from that. So with the panic attacks, did you have the panic attacks prior to the addiction, or did those come after the addiction when you were in recovery?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had social anxiety that was definitely diagnosable at a young age, starting at about 12. It was pretty crippling, even at that early age. And I coped with other addictive behaviors. I actually had coped with isolation. I coped with online games, and I coped with internet pornography. That's actually how I coped with my anxiety and the way I felt. And so that behavior of avoiding this anxiety and even trauma and pain didn't serve me too well. And that only increased the anxiety. And the panic attacks really didn't start until, I would say, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I mean, the actual panic attacks, so the anxiety has been there since I was a child. The panic attacks are different. And those actually started happening my first year of addiction recovery. And they were no joke. I mean, to be facing the pressure that I faced with the felonies and the time over my head, which was approximately 7 years, and having my single mom, my mother who is, on her own, and really the pressure and stress that I put her under, and just all the stuff that was happening, and the fear of being sober, right? Like, I don't know how to live sober, like fear of being sober, fear of being a felon, fear of how to, cope. And I think maybe the stress was so great that it caused some mental illness and panic attacks. And I literally would be standing, like I'd just be standing, let's say at my job, because I ended up getting my job back somehow. And I'd be in there, and a customer would walk in, and all of a sudden I would literally have this panic attack happen, and I would blank out. Like, I'd have like a blackness, and I'd like blank out. And then I'd be sweating for fear, like my hands, my palms would be soaked in sweat. I'd actually go into the bathroom and just like get on my knees and pray. Like, I don't know why is this happening? I thought I was dying, actually.
Wow.
They continued happening. That they happened for years and years after that. But that first year was really crippling. But like I said, I probably should have had more attention to it, maybe with a professional. But I just started to read inspirational books and create my own positive affirmations to try to combat them. People thought I was probably crazy. I would say affirmations out loud, to try to combat my social anxiety, but my actual, or my panic attacks. But the panic attacks, really, I've never been asked that. It started at 22. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So how was that? Whatever the job was that you had, you were working with customers, or at least people you had to deal with face to face. So how did that go over if you were having a panic attack when you started talking to somebody? I mean, was that threatening for that person? Was the person that witnessed the beginning of that panic attack before you had to leave and go to the bathroom and pray and come back? Was it this person wait for you? Did you feel like you were being judged? Or
No, I would just, I actually think when, looks are deceiving, you don't know what's going on in someone's internal world, the battles they're facing. I'm pretty sure when people looked at me, they had no idea that this was happening. They probably couldn't even tell, because how I knew that is it would happen so often that I actually experience it. And then I would like look for like this reaction from them. Like, I'm like, oh my God, they must think that I'm serious. I got serious problems. Something's happening. And I look and they just continue talking about something else. And I'd be like, how didn't they see what just happened? And I started to realize, like, wow, like I started to also at 22 to correlate that the inside, people have no idea, and I have no idea what's going on in someone's world. Like, we can't tell by the outside. We dress it up. We cannot tell. And I started to really learn that connection. Like, wow, judge no one, because you never know the battles they're fighting.
yeah, yeah. Do you think that that ultimately helped you in your recovery when we get to learn? Because I think that's what a lot of us do, is we stay in judgment of other people for, do I fit in? Am I good enough? Is that person better than me? Am I better than them? Do you think that the whole piece of recognizing that judgment, when you learned, don't be judging anybody because I'm experiencing myself, nobody ever knows what's really going on inside of me. Do you think that letting go of that helped you on your road to recovery?
I think that it helped to be more compassionate with myself and with others, to realize, like, if I can be sober, like nothing in my system, and still experience this much torment, this much going on of panic attacks and anxiety and stress, that other people face this every single day. Every day someone's facing it. Like imagine me, I think of myself back at 22 and someone like meeting me and not knowing what was going on. No one knew what was going on except my family and the people closest to me. Like how many people are facing that battle that we walk by at the supermarket, that we see walking on the sidewalk when we're driving our cars? Like how many people are actually facing that battle and we just have no idea? We just, so I think for me, it's compassion, both self-compassion and both compassion for the people around me. And that's really an important element of recovery, is helping others, and being compassionate. So it's definitely a good framework for the beginning of my recovery journey.
Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful blessing to come out of that, right? Just the whole compassion part, and knowing everybody's on a path, and none of us are doing this without some kind of upset or upheaval inside of us. And when we can just learn that everybody has their own troubles that they're trying to get through, and just the whole compassion. It's amazing how the world can change. And I truly
Mhm.
believe in world peace. And I think that that's a big part of it, when we can be compassionate to our fellow man. So I know that you read a lot and you did a lot of affirmations, and that was very helpful to help you with the panic attacks, because I've never had a drug addiction. It makes me wonder how hard it was to not turn back and resort to drugs to tap down those panic attacks. Was that always sitting on the brink, or was that just the furthest thing from my mind because I have this 7 years hanging over my head? And I know how my mom is feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think really what happened was the combination of the pressure of the time hanging over my head, but also the fact that I knew the gig was up. I had like awoken from a sleep. And like I'd been in a sleep for 4 years, from 18 to 22 with the drug addiction and alcohol addiction I had. And I was what you would call a functioning person who's
Yeah.
using drugs and alcohol, where I would actually hold a job. You wouldn't really know. I'd hold a job till I lose it, and then I wouldn't tell you the real reason I lost it, but you just didn't really know. And so that was kind of scary, to be doing and consuming what I was doing, and not people have no idea what I'm going through, and just being functioning in some ways until at 22 it all came crumbling down. To have that time hanging over my head, and also like this, I had this realization that like I had been asleep for 4 years, like I'd been so stuck in that addiction that I had no idea how far it had taken me down the hole, and how alls I could do is rebuild. Alls I had to do is change everything but my name, right? I had to change everything. And I could just see my life. Like I could see what my life was up to that point, and I could see that if I was going to change my future, it would start right now. So I
Yeah.
started to read books, to journal every day, to write gratitude every day, to attend self-help groups, to talk to my mentor weekly, to wake up earlier, to start to drink more water, to start to exercise. I mean, I turned it on. I went all in, you could say, on my recovery, with the best I knew how, with the resources I had at my disposal, where I was for my mental capacity. I did everything I could to make sure that happened. And the result was that I stayed sober for that first year of them trying to find how much time they were going to put me away for. And because I did the next right thing every single day, and because I was, doing these habits and doing the next right thing, like I ended up not going to prison. I ended up taking my felonies and doing probation and not going to prison, which is, that's not the case for everyone. And sometimes it's not a bad thing to get that time away. But for me, it's not what happened. And I just never stopped. I learned early on that power of habits, change your habits, change your life, right? So change your habits. So I started to change my habits, and I correlated a lot of what was happening in the beginning to the change in my daily behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh my God, I have so many questions. So, can you tell us? I know you were reading inspirational books. What were some of those inspirational books that you were reading that were so powerful? Because you really didn't have, at least I don't remember hearing you say counseling. I know you had a mentor and you weren't in a recovery program, like that's strictly just working with recovery, or like a mental health therapist for recovery. Were you doing that? Because it sounds like you did a lot of this on your own, that you just paved your path.
There wasn't like drug court. I didn't do that. I didn't have I didn't go to addiction treatment center. That's not what the judge said. The judge said, you're basically going to work full time and go to the self-help groups. So I had like
Wow.
and I did, just to be clear, I did have a therapist that they paid for. The court, what a blessing, right? I didn't have the money. The court paid for me to see a counselor. So I did get to see a counselor, and bless her heart, thank God for this woman who wasn't even someone. This is a lesson for all the listeners. This woman was not even someone who struggled with addiction, and she was helping me. So it just goes to show you, you don't even necessarily have to be someone who has struggled with addiction to help someone who has this issue with addiction. And she helped me so much. And we stayed friends. I saw her right up until like a year ago, so we'd stayed friends. It's been 13 years. That first year was so critical, seeing Bonnie, her name was Bonnie, to see Bonnie, and then to go to my self-help groups, and then talk to my mentor every week, and then I had another group. I got up at 6:30 every Wednesday morning, and I would attend this men's group, and these men would literally surround me because my father left at 5 and never returned. So I had these men who I didn't have a relationship with men. And I had these men at Wednesday morning at 6:30 that would surround me and just literally, they would just pray for me. They would just be like, because I was supposed to do the time. So they would just, be there and be comforting. So I started to change my paradigm, right? I started to change my paradigm about having a relationship with an older man because there was no father figure. And so all these things started, it was almost overwhelming, all the things that happened in that first year.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I know I didn't know about you not having a father figure when you were growing up. So, and you said your mom was raising you alone, but did you have siblings also?
Yeah. So my brother, I had two brothers, but one brother, I mean, they're older, 8 and 12 years older. So my oldest brother had moved out by the time we had, after my father left, we kind of bounced around, and I had a middle brother, the one that's 8 years older than me. He actually became that like father figure. He would help me with,
Wow.
like when I played sports early, 9 years old, 10 years old, he would actually help, he'd pay for like, maybe a baseball bat or football.
Wow.
And so he became that person to try to fill the role. But your brother who's 8 years older than you can't be your father, right? Can't be your
Right.
father figure. He can only, so he's still a young kid himself. So, he tried to fill that role, and I'm forever grateful for that. But that was it. It was my mom raising three boys on her own, and no other figure really came in the scene. That was it. She never remarried or found someone else. So, we we made it, and she did her best. And actually today is my mom's 67th birthday. So happy birthday, mom. And,
Oh, happy birthday, mom.
yeah. And every year I give her my medallion. So last time we ate, I celebrated 13 years of long-term recovery from addiction, from drugs and alcohol. And I give her my medallion every single time I receive it. So I got a 13-year medallion. I give it to my mom. She deserves it. She's the reason I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. That is so great. And how is she doing as a mom? I know how scary it is when your kids start going down a path that you can see that is nothing but destruction. So how did she cope through all of this? For those 4 years, was she aware that you were struggling with this addiction?
No, no. The first year I went away to college. So when I went to college at 18, I went away. It was the first time away from home, and my addiction it started to become crazy. But I hid it, and I failed all my classes, so I didn't hide it too well. But they let me back a second semester. So that first semester, I would just lie. Right? When you're in addiction, you will do anything to protect your addiction. You will lie, you cheat, you'll manipulate,
Yeah.
to protect your addiction. So I just told her like, oh, that first semester was a lot of pressure on me. And the college somehow let me back a second semester with like a 0.6 GPA. And
Wow.
I came back a second semester, nothing changed. Like I was still drinking, I was still getting high, and then I flunked out of school. So the first year, she didn't really know. She just thought it was a lot of pressure. It was maybe too much. So I flunked out of school, and now I'm 19. And then I'm back and I'm hiding it from her. And then eventually at 20, my father passed away. And as soon as he passed away, that's when it unlocked the trauma that I had never healed from him abandoning me at 5 years old. It like that lie that I told myself, the toxic shame of like, I'm not lovable was still there at 20 when he died. It just triggered it. Even though we had no relationship, wasn't even talking to him when he passed away. Like I went off the rail, and that's when I got into serious hard drugs like cocaine and heroin.
Oh, man. Wow. Is it hard to talk about now? I know that you facilitate groups and you do a lot with recovery, but is it hard to talk about now, or have you come to terms with it, and it's you're far enough removed and have educated yourself enough and you have enough soul searching that it's not as difficult, or no?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on myself. I love talking about this actually. If it serves someone else, I love talking about it. And by
Yeah.
talking about trauma that's happened in a person's life, because a lot of this is just pain, right?
Yeah.
Addiction, a lot of it comes from pain, trauma, and especially when we're young. And so we bottle up the trauma and pain, and we mask it with addiction until we might pick up an addiction like a drug addiction, then you can't mask it very long. And I so I'm totally good with talking about this, and I've come a long way with it.
Yeah, wow. Because it's just I can feel the pain that if I was to imagine what it would be like to have that father that leaves you when you're 5 years old, and now you're 20 years old and your father passes away, and now it's just bringing up all of this other stuff that it's just like you get so blindsided by it that you can't even see straight. There's like nothing makes any sense, and then numb it all out so I don't have to feel anything.
Yeah, it was definitely a big blindside for sure. And it was a blindside because I didn't even have a relationship with him. So it was
Right.
baffling that it would even affect me. That's what was so interesting about it. And so, yeah, it definitely took me down a huge spiral. I did things I would cross a line in the sand and jump over it 10 feet. After he
Wow.
died, I did things that I never imagined I would ever do.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Just amazing how we bury stuff and we don't even know that it's buried in there. And I think we all do this as a survival mechanism, just to push stuff down. And I can make up whatever story I need to make up in my head. But for the most part, it seems like people that are working on themselves and really trying to do their own evolution of their own consciousness, that stuff has to come back up to the surface so we can release it and repattern it. And it's a painful journey.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Wow. So your mom now is, oh, I never did get that answer. I'm sorry. How was your mom? She had to have found out somewhere in those 4 years that you had an
Oh, yeah,
addiction.
sorry. Yeah, so, she actually didn't know until she had a suspicion, but it wasn't very clear, and so I was really able to hide it. I hid it the whole time really, because I left too, I moved to Florida, so, the first year I was away. The second year I was around, but I hid it, and then I moved to Florida. So, I got
Okay.
to hide that in Florida. I basically escaped to Florida. I try to do the geographical cure, like, oh, if I move to Florida, that will heal my addiction. That's like the
Right.
worst place you could ever go in 2005. It's like a pill farm, pill city, pill capital. And I went down there and I just got more of what I wanted. And, I left New Hampshire and I showed up to Florida with the same person, and I was still in trouble. So, yeah, I went
Wow.
to Florida and I really saw what addiction could be like and how far I could take it. And I hit a really hard bottom, near death experience in Florida. And this is now the second time. And I came home from Florida, and that's when everything changed. So I'm 22. I come back from Florida, and that's when I wasn't actually going to admit that I had a problem to my mom. I just told my brother, I said, I have a problem with cocaine, and don't tell mom, and we'll figure everything out. And he had no idea the extent of how bad my addiction was, of course. And
Yeah.
so luckily 2 weeks later, coming back from Florida, I get a call that I got federal agents looking to arrest me. So
Oh God. I can't even imagine what that phone call had to have felt like.
yeah, I don't think that's a day I can ever forget.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember it as clear as day. I was walking out. I went back so I came back to New Hampshire, and now you got to understand, like, I was just on a tear of drug addiction, like a serious drug addiction. And now I'm back, like, oh, I'll just figure everything out. Like, no, I didn't ask for help. I didn't tell anyone the full story. And now I'm back, like, oh, I'm just going to go on with my life after having this massive addiction here. And what happened is I went back to my old employer and I got my job back, and I was walking out. I just got my job back and I'm walking out and I get a phone call to my roommate in Florida. And he said, hey, there's these agents here looking for you. Like, I don't know what they're here for. And I'm scared and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know why they're there. And I hung up the phone, and then I got another call from a restricted number. And I knew that wasn't going to be good. And that's it. It was the agent. And they said, don't go anywhere. We got a warrant for your arrest. We're coming to get you. And, they let me come home, and they let me spend the time with my family to break the news. They didn't come arrest me immediately. So I had that time. They figured I probably wouldn't run. And so I spent that, it was December 22nd, 2005. And I spent that night before with my family and had to break the news that I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'm probably going away for a while. And yeah, December 22nd, I was arraigned in Concord federal court. And yeah, I remember the day vividly. My mother and my family were on the right to me. They shackled me at my ankles. They shackled me at my wrist. I walk
Oh,
into the
God.
court, and my family's to the right, and they're bawling their eyes out because they just got news that I was going to be definitely doing time.
Oh,
And I had a court-appointed lawyer. I met my lawyer 5 minutes before I went into the biggest court case of my life, and it was scary. So panic attacks and stress and the things I was facing were probably pretty obviously going to happen in some ways after that court date.
Oh my God, man. Oh, I'm telling you, Jesse. So how was it that the Federals were even looking for you? What was the story that they were looking for you to charge you?
Yeah. So just essentially, what this is a lesson too, if anyone's listening and they're struggling with addiction and they're thinking of doing this. And I mean, this was in 2000, 2003, 2004, 2005. But I found a way. So there's kind of a big backstory, but I'll make it as short as possible. When I was when my father passed away, I got into some sketchy places. I mean, I was doing heroin and cocaine and all these things, and something happened. This person was arrested, and I eventually came back to where my mom was living, and now I had just went from doing heavy drugs to now, like, how am I gonna like cope with my life? And I started to search online, like, how could I find pills? Like, how could I just get pills from this online world? And I found a way to get pills from an online place, and they would deliver them wherever I wanted. And that's the long story short is I started ordering online, and they would be delivered, and I picked them up, and this worked for months and months and months, hundreds and hundreds of pills. And what happened was eventually the pills they went to the wrong place. They went to the place I didn't want them to go, which was a post office. And I went there, and ironically enough, my father worked at a post office. So
Oh,
in some ways he's probably responsible for saving my life, even though he was passed away at that point. Because the package went to the post office, and I went and picked it up, and bam, I got arrested. And ironically enough, they let me go. And that's when I escaped to Florida. And then when I came back, that's 10 months later, I got the call that they were coming back for me.
wow. Wow. Oh God. So do you feel like, because I love this part that you just said, that ironically it feels like my dad like kind of stepped in there and saved my life. Do you believe that on a soul level that, you know, even though your dad did what he did by walking out on you when you were 5 years old, and now you're in a place where you're going down, you're losing and you're losing fast. And now that's another question. How could the pills even get sent to a post office instead of getting sent to your house? And do you really believe that your dad had a hand in that? Because I totally believe in that kind of stuff.
I do today. I would. This is a recent like thought I had, a recent download, if you will, about this idea because it didn't make any sense, and I've been trying to process it for over a decade, right? And and it just came to me recently that maybe there was some type of intervention because he wasn't there, right? He was gone at 5. He died of alcoholism. His death certificate says cause of death alcoholism. That's what it says on his death certificate. So he was someone who struggled with this illness. And I only understand now on the flip side that like he was suffering. And I, think that the way to maybe help me is maybe somehow he made that happen. It might sound really crazy. Maybe I'm crazy, but on some level, it's like he wasn't there to help and assist from 5 on, but maybe at 22, maybe that was his shot to have this package go to a post office, which is like to me seemingly impossible, and for me to be arrested.
Yeah. God, I don't think it's crazy at all. I think that's exactly how this universe works. I think it's just divinely orchestrated. And it doesn't matter if your physical body is here or not, because ultimately, I believe we are all energy and we're just these spiritual beings having this human experience. I just find that so fascinating. And you said that that is just now coming to you, that realization that maybe my dad had a hand in this for my recovery. Am I right in that?
Yeah, it just came to me. There was whenever the last full moon was, really. I remember vividly that it was that day. And I'm actually writing a new book, and the book has to do with my story and a process to come out to thrive in recovery, because it's not about getting into recovery and being sober. That's not what this is about. This is about thriving in recovery. How
Yeah.
do you do that? That's what keeps you alive. That's what keeps you wanting to not pick up and use a drug or use a substance or use a behavior, is that purpose. So I was actually going to add a piece to my book, and the piece of the book I was adding was about my father. And as I added the piece to the book, I remember vividly, I looked up and I saw, I knew it was a full moon. I looked up, I saw the clock, and I was like, bam, this clear thought came into my head that maybe my dad had the connections because he used to work at the post office, that somehow he had his hand in getting me arrested at a post office, which saved my life, period.
Yeah. Wow. I totally love that. Have you ever heard Wayne Dyer's story with his dad?
I heard a little bit about it. I heard a little bit about the story about him visiting his dad's grave.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a powerful story.
Yeah, that's exactly how it makes me think about this story with your dad, because he was also left, and he literally went to his grave to, the way Wayne Dyer says it, is to piss on his grave. He literally just wanted to piss
Yeah.
on him, but it was all of these signs that happened as he was getting to the cemetery. And he said that it literally healed him, that he no longer was angry at his father, that there was all of this stuff that led up to that. And I had no idea we were going down this path. And I just wish I could reach through this and energetically just give you the biggest hug, because I find it just phenomenal that happened with you. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. So I'm going to switch back to your mom. Apparently I'm hooked up on your mom here, Jesse. So
Well, it is her birthday, so.
that's right. Yes. And happy birthday, Mom. So, and she's doing good now, right? I mean, it sounds like you're
Yeah.
doing so well. So there's just,
Yeah.
such blessings that came out of all of this stuff that is so scary and dark. And yeah, it's just, so she's got to be just so proud of you, and just in love with you and your life, and how you've turned things around and have been able to help so many other people. And that's phenomenal that you were sharing that gift of your, not just the recovery, but the thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having that purpose. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that you have a gift for the audience, a free gift for the audience. And I would like for you to speak about that a little bit, and a little bit about the um, facilitation and the work that you do, because there's no doubt that this is landing on ears of somebody who really needs to hear this. And you're just such a down to earth, totally cool guy, that it's not, you're not stuffy, you're not pretentious. It's not, oh God, I couldn't even go and do any of this stuff that he does. You're just real. You're just this real human who went through painful stuff and turned this whole thing around and thriving in your own life and being able to share that with others. So if you can share all of that, sorry, that was a mouthful, but if you can share all of that so somebody listening can hear this and say, oh my God, I need to get in touch with Jesse, or I need to get his free gift, or I need to get his book
Yeah.
that will be coming out, if you can help us with that.
Yeah, I'll just start with, my first book was released on 11/11/2018. I've released it recently, and that book is called Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers. It's how to boost your energy, defeat your anxiety, and overcome unwanted habits. And that book, I wrote that book because 3 years ago, a friend of mine came into my house and he said, out of the blue, he said, and he knew I struggled with social anxiety a bit. And he said, you need to take cold showers for 30 days. And I said, no way, not going to happen. Like, why would I ever do that? I live in New Hampshire. It's December. That's not happening. It's 38 degrees out. And he was like, well, you should, and Google it and find out why. And I was like, not going to happen. And my roommate at the time, he actually ran upstairs and took a straight cold shower right after my friend said it. And I was like, what the heck? So I took my first cold shower right after that as well. And what happened was, that night I went to a meeting, and I always got social anxiety at this meeting. And I sat in that meeting, nothing was happening. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why don't I have, like, did I eat something different? Did I drink? All I did was take that cold shower. Yeah. And so what I did is I said, well, if this is going to help with social anxiety, I'm all in. So I gave it 30 days of cold showers. And I'll tell you, at the end of the 30 days, not only did my social anxiety nearly vanish, I was way more confident. I felt the best I had felt in a really long time. And I just said, I'm going to keep doing this. And now it's been 3 years, and now there's a book, and now you can learn about my story of how it helped me overcome my social anxiety. It's a very short book, but I give away a gift, which is the 30-day cold shower journal. So if you're going to take the challenge like I did, then I give away the cold shower journal, which is jesseharless.com/free gift. You can go and grab the journal, but grab the book first. I mean, to jump into 30-day cold showers, you're like, why would I do that? Like what I said, get the book and read it, and then you'll understand why.
Right, right. And is there any kind of, I mean, is this like an old ritual, like thousands of years ago, that the cold showers? And do you know biologically what happens, what is going on with the body when you're taking a cold shower? Because everything about that is just like my body wants to just put the brakes on, right? Because I'm looking at snow outside going, there's no way I could take a cold shower. But I am so intrigued by this that I really do want to try it and give it a shot. But do you know the physiological factors that are happening when you, as a result of taking the cold showers?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's research done. I mean, obviously it's a limited research, right? Like big pharma is not going to support
Yeah,
something that's free.
right.
So cold showers has to be studied by, grassroots movement. But there was a guy, Dr. Nikolai Shevchuk, who had came out with a study about how cold showers actually stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. And so, there's something that happens with cold water. And, he says that just looking at what it says in my book, it says whole body exposure to cold has been shown to activate the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for priming the body for action. And so essentially what happens is there's like a beta endorphin release. There's something happening and with the brain chemicals, and there's vasoconstriction and the blood's rushing to the vital organs. And what that's doing is boosting your metabolism. But he also mentions that it's something with the brain chemistry too that can help reduce depression. And that's in my book as well. I only put the stuff in my book that I had personally experienced. So some of the things you'll see in my book is like increasing energy, which is in other books too. Like there's other books that talk about cold showers increasing energy, but improving your mood and boosting your sympathetic nervous system and muscle soreness and better skin, and even which is controversial, weight loss, because of brown fat and how it produces more brown fat. But I did my research before I released a book about cold showers. Like it or not, they've changed my life. I've taken them straight for 3 years, and there's definitely some backing behind it. And there's some journal articles. I put all the resources in my book that I found that were relevant. There's like 100 or maybe even 200, but I put about maybe 20 in my book, 25. And I had interviewed these people. So I actually interviewed some of these people and to learn why they were taking showers for the last 30 years, cold showers. And like you said, has it been around for thousands of years? Yeah, the Japanese mountain monks, Misogi, practice, they stand under waterfalls that are 45 degrees, and they do this for spiritual cleansing. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of fascinating, but all I know is it works. It makes me feel good, and I do it.
Yeah. And I can't believe you're still doing it consistently for 3 solid years.
Yeah.
You haven't taken one warm shower?
No, I take them straight cold. But, like I say in the book, you don't have to take a straight cold shower. For me, I need to take a straight cold shower. Just this is what I need. Just like Tony Robbins, every morning he jumps into like a 57-degree pool. Like that's what he needs. But what I need is the cold shower. And so other people can take a normal warm shower and then end the shower 30 seconds cold. And I bet you when people hear that, they go, oh, I've been doing that. Well, there you go. There's benefits to doing that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And I didn't know anything about the Japanese monks standing underneath a waterfall. It's like, holy cow,
Yeah.
you are a wealth of knowledge. This is just fascinating. And I could talk to you forever. And hopefully you'll come back on the show and we'll do another kind of something here. And I do want to kind of be bringing this in for a landing. But before I do, and don't worry, so Jesse's book, the free gift that Jesse is giving away, his website, all of that will be in the show notes. So you don't have to worry if you didn't catch any of that information. All of that will be there. So drive your car, relax. It will all be there for you. But Jesse, I thought I heard you say that you had a near-death experience twice. Is that right?
Yeah, from drugs. Yep.
So like almost overdosing.
Yeah. One of the first time was Oxycontin, and the second time was a combination of probably 4 things. including, hydrocodone, cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, ecstasy. And yeah, so twice. Yep.
God, wow. So what happened in those events? Like were paramedics called or how did that all turn out? Well, I mean, obviously you're here, but
No, I mean, I was at really bad places at those times. So I didn't really care if I lived or died. It sounds,
mm,
pretty harsh, but I didn't care. So I
yeah.
lived through them, but that's where I was at, and luckily the second time, the second near death experience was the one that got me home from Florida. So
Yeah.
thank God that second one happened because I hit, it wasn't my end of my using, but it certainly was enough of a scare for me to admit to my roommate and to one other person that there could be a problem. And they obviously knew that there was a problem.
Yeah.
And I was enough to make me come back to New Hampshire.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing the things like a near death experience that is from drugs that ends up being one of the biggest blessings that gets you back. And your father passing away, that ends up being one of the biggest blessings that gets the pills sent to the wrong place. So intervention happens, although it's not the kind of intervention anybody would ever want to have the federal law after you does not sound like anything I ever want to experience. But wow, you just have this is just an amazing story. And I met you in person, and I can say you are the picture of health. I mean, you have this energy and zeal and zest for life about you. You're a joy to be around, and your energy was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I didn't know the depth of your story. So this has just been really fascinating for me. And I know that listeners got a great deal out of this. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners? Anybody who is maybe suffering from addiction, or they know somebody who is suffering from addiction, or anything, any final thoughts that you would like to leave the listeners that you would like to share?
Yeah, I don't want to I don't want to open up another can of worms, but there is I'll give you a quick acronym that is going to be helpful to some people that I've used. And it's really what's helped me for 13 years of my recovery is an acronym that it's FEARS. FEARS is the acronym. And fears is always looked at as a negative thing, but I love to tackle fears because that has helped me to thrive more than anything is getting out of my comfort zone. And so I came up with this acronym FEARS, and what it stands for is F is focus on your recovery. Every day, do one thing towards your recovery. You'll never lose your recovery if you're doing something every day towards it. So F is focus on your recovery. E is exercise your mind and body. Every day, exercise your mind and body. What does that mean? So, exercise your mind is essentially read every day, listen to podcasts, listen to this podcast, do things that exercise your mind, practice visualization, even do the affirmations, right? Do affirmations. Those are a game changer, even in my early recovery. And exercise, and then get moving, exercise your body, get moving, study, look at nutrition, drink more water. And then A, I'm going to go through these really fast. A is appreciation. Appreciate your strengths. You are a resilient person. If you have battled the things that you have battled to even get to this place, you are resilient. Appreciate those strengths. Study what those strengths are. Learn what they are. Appreciate the people around you. Appreciate people who have supported your journey, and just be grateful. And then R is reflection. Reflect upon your day every day. Journal every night without exception. Journal the journey. I started journaling at my first year of recovery. I have 13 years of journals now. Thank God a mentor told me to do that. So reflect on your day, reflect on your goals. So that's reflection. And then S is self-care. Self-care more than anything else has helped me today to process things like my father and his passing away. So self-care, meditation, yoga, silence. There's a new meditation practice coming up from Oprah and Chopra, and the 25-day, whatever it is, the 30-day free challenge. Like, do that challenge. It's coming up, I think, March 25th. Like, start to meditate, start to do self-care, radical self-care. So that's my acronym. Hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that you still do that even today, these years later, you're still doing that and journaling, 13 years of journals. I mean, my gosh, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
life-changing, obviously. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, every day.
Wow. Wow. I am just kind of blown away by all of this, Jesse. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be here with me and to be able to share this absolutely life changing, life altering information. And I just want to remind all of the listeners again, Jesse's information will be in the show notes. So there will be no problem finding that. Jesse, I can't thank you enough for your time and your wisdom and all the blessings in your life for being able to overcome that addiction and thrive and be able to be a light to others. So thank you so much for all of the work that you have done in the world.
Thank you, Nada. Yeah, thank you, Nada. It's been an honor to be here on your show today.
I appreciate it very much, Jesse. So look forward to talking to you another day. I would love to do this again. To everybody else, all the listeners, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will catch you here again next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please go to nadahogan.com for show notes and other information that you can use right away. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to rate and review right there on iTunes, Stitcher, or however you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends about it. We'll see you next week.